All right, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining wherever you are dialing in from around the world. Hope your day is going okay so far. Excited to get into the content today and get a couple layers of detail over to you about this announcement. You may have seen that Kaleido and Polygon made together just a week ago. First, a quick agenda before we get in. Kyle and I, Kyle, our guest from Polygon, and myself are going to take you through some overview and context so you can understand the details of the partnership and also the technology behind the announcement. Then we're going to do a live interactive demo so you can see it in action and you can learn how to try it out yourself today. And then finally, we'll transition into a panel discussion where we'll cover a number of topics from maybe a little bit of detail of what's coming next in the roadmap through to some of your questions as well, and we'll make it an interactive session. So action-packed hour today, and happy and excited to jump into it. A quick note on some of the speakers that you'll be seeing today. I'm Steve Cerveny. I'm the CEO of Kaleido. I'll be leading the first section of it, and then I'll turn it over to Kyle for a few minutes, our guest from the Polygon team. So welcome, Kyle. And then Nick Gaski, a solution architect here at Kaleido, will be driving the demo, and Jim, one of the Kaleido co-founders and a deep subject matter expert in all things protocol, will be joining Kyle and myself for the Q&A section. Okay, so in case you missed it, last week Kaleido and Polygon announced a partnership. If you're looking at the recording later, or once you have these slides, which we'll send out after the announcement, I've included some links here below for you to get off to some convenient resources. But in short, the announcement was really centered around accelerating, getting enterprises online into Web3. This is something that's been a core focus area for Kaleido for quite a long time now. And we're really excited to see as the Polygon ecosystem continues to expand and grow, the investments that they're making in their scaling platform to really find technologies and solutions that meet the needs of everyone, including enterprises. And this announcement centered around the Edge framework, the Edge technology stack, and where that's growing into in supernets and other things that we'll be touching on throughout this presentation. If you move on to the next slide, introducing the partners at a really high level. Polygon on the right really needs no introduction, but the ecosystem, one of the largest ecosystems that's really focusing on scaling Ethereum and Web3 at large. They started in 2017, and among their core mission is really to bring that scaling technology into a cohesive platform, and you'll see a number of different technologies that they're investing in. On the other side, Kaleido is a Web3 infrastructure company founded around the same time, and our mission here at Kaleido is really focused on enterprises and bringing enterprises online into Web3, understanding that to do that, we need to make these technologies dramatically easier to adopt, to use, and we need to bring into that infrastructure the qualities of scale that institutions and enterprises require. So things like security, compliance, understanding that they exist in regulated environments, and so forth. And so you can see that the partnership has a number of natural synergies between the two organizations, and that's why this is so exciting to be really unveiling this first phase of the partnership to everyone. Kaleido provides a SaaS platform that accelerates the time from idea into live application. We do that through hundreds of APIs, integrated plug-and-play services that are part of the platform. Kaleido has flexibility and choice in the box, so you can select from different protocols, different configurations. Other technologies just work alongside. If you, for example, if you want a hosted wallet or a specialized kind of a wallet like an HD wallet, all the way through to different storage options, different approaches to oracles, as well as tons of features and integrations into Web2. So there's, I guess, a little bit of a secret or something that isn't talked about enough in the space, and the fact that a huge percentage of the work that you have building out your application or your solution is not the new stuff and not getting the blockchain piece working correctly. It's about gluing it back to all the other existing systems and all the integrations and data flows and event flows that need to happen for a true production grade system to go live. So Kaleido aims to provide all of that in an easy to use platform where you can just sign up, start on a free account, and get on your journey and get all of those services deployed and running. So on top of that core platform and those core capabilities that I was describing today, Kaleido does have a number of dedicated offerings that are specific and targeted at some of the largest use cases that we see today in the Web3 space. So if you're a financial institution and you're thinking about a digital asset strategy and a digital asset platform to accelerate that, Kaleido offers that, that institutional scale digital asset platform. We also have a dedicated offering for around an NFT platform. If you're looking at a mass scale, a zero gas, but you also want connectivity into public ecosystems like Polygon, and I'm going to show a high-level diagram of how that can work in a second. If you're in the enterprise space and you have more of a B2B network, or a business network, or a consortium, Kaleido is the only infrastructure provider that has consortium as a service. So your whole ecosystem can come and can set up different accounts, and we handle all the complexity of secure cross connectivity of all of those data flows, and we've automated that in a compliant, easy to use platform. And then finally, if you're thinking about setting up your own side chain as a service, maybe you think about it as a layer 3 or a layer 2.5 or something, where you want to tailor the chain that's being stood up to the right level of decentralization, maybe the right mix of how public those interfaces are or are not, or whether the block explorer is visible to certain parties or not, and really tailoring the whole stack all the way down to the chain. That's another thing that Kaleido can offer. So there's a quick, maybe broad view of the landscape of the Kaleido platform. Let's now turn the page and zoom in on Polygon Edge, the technology that's running on Kaleido today. Edge is a framework for standing up a dedicated chain, something that Kaleido users and customers are quite familiar with doing on the platform. Edge is exciting because it's a new emerging technology stack and framework where you can stand up this dedicated chain and have zero gas fee transactions. And along with that, a from scratch framework that the Polygon team is building, and they've open sourced and that means that it's building it from scratch. They've made it quite modular. They made it very high throughput, and you can see the benefits of that work that the team is doing. Plugging that into the Kaleido platform, you can access those 40 plus plug and play services, from the digital asset capabilities to things like minting NFTs very easily through the token explorer and the token dashboard, and many other things like making it easy to manage smart contracts and promote those into different environments and plug those into your DevOps pipeline. Here's a conceptual diagram. I can't capture everything, but I wanted to make a couple points before turning it over to Kyle for a few thoughts. One thing that's really cool about this edge technology is not just that you can build really high performance dedicated chains, but that the framework and the roadmap for the framework also includes a connectivity. So you're not just building another island or isolated stack, but the connectivity to the rest of the blockchain world, the rest of the EVM blockchain world, is intended to be in the box. So you see you see more arrows here than just your application going to a single chain. First, you see that the application has several arrows going to it. And so the idea here, and this matches the requirements that we've seen from a number of you that we've spoken with at Kaleido, the idea that you could control and tailor the specific transaction. So there may be a very small amount of very important transactions that you want to target directly at Ethereum mainnet layer 1. There may, and those come with high fees. Maybe it's a bit slower because you need to wait for confirmation times and so forth. But it's worth it to you for a small percentage of really important transactions. Perhaps you're creating your own coin, for example, and the place to do that's on the Ethereum mainnet. The second arrow going out from your application, you can see, goes directly to the main Polygon chain, right? So here, for example, minting, an initial batch of NFTs or something like that, you want to do that on a decentralized chain, and maybe it's not quite as important, so you don't want to do, pay the highest gas fees, and the low fees that Polygon offers works for you. And so you do those sorts of operations there. And then finally, the third arrow coming out of your application is going into your dedicated edge chain. And here, maybe this is the heavy lifting of what your application is doing. Maybe there's thousands or millions of transactions, right? Something that just wouldn't make sense to do on a public chain where you're competing for space in blocks, and the fees fluctuate as they must in a public chain to control that, and so forth. And so you have this high performance zero gas chain where you can process as many transactions as you can push through on that dedicated hardware. And so one other thing before we move on here, I wanted to point out is that's the idea of kind of the mix of transactions and giving you a framework where you have simple control over that, and it's not years of testing and hardening and so forth. But there are other arrows on here as well. You can see that the edge chain is connected to Polygon mainnet. I could also have shown it connecting directly to layer 1. And the idea here, there is additional connectivity in the edge framework as well. So remember I said these edge chains aren't intended to be islands. Well, connecting them, doing things like rolling up to a parent public chain. The vision for this framework is to make that really simple as well. And this gets into Polygon's broader roadmap and some of the other things that they're building. So things like roll-ups and so forth, we can expect in time to see that more options and building on that pluggable, extensible framework that is Edge, more exciting capabilities coming over time. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kyle for a few minutes to go through a couple thoughts around Polygon.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And as mentioned, many people are aware of what Polygon released initially to the public, which was the proof of stake public chain, which is a commit chain to Ethereum. However, I'll just take a brief moment to overview a lot of the other tech that we have in the stack and maybe give some insight as to when these could be released more publicly. So we're obviously talking a lot about Edge today. That's our sovereign chain. One key note there is we use the term sovereign because we want those who are releasing applications and building that blockchain network to have sovereign control over the blockchain attributes. That could be consensus mechanism, it could be block height, it could be time to finality, and some other considerations around gas and how the blocks are actually added to the chain. We also have supernets, but that's a separate conversation. That's essentially shared security. And then all the items below Edge, or sorry, rather supernets, that's our data availability and roll up suite of technologies. And so Polygon has been in lockstep executing on the Ethereum Foundation roadmap. So very core to the future of scaling is data avail, rollups, and all for the effort of essentially getting more transactions in a block. One other key note is we have Polygon Nightfall, which is our privacy smart contract approach that we're building alongside EY. But again, we're here to talk about Edge, and I really wanted to drive the point home that that Kaleido really helps enterprises who want to deploy an asset and do peer-to-peer networking over cryptographically secure blockchain networks, do that in as simple as a way of launching a website. That's kind of the promise around Web3. And for enterprises who have a myriad more considerations than your average dApp developer, Kaleido addresses a lot of that, a lot of those considerations. And so, Polygon, in partnering with Kaleido to bring this infrastructure, this enterprise infrastructure to market, is also our channel to help enterprises mature as Ethereum matures. So, we will be working very closely to add, a lot of the innovations that we're seeing on the L2s, but bring it down to the enterprise level, and Kaleido is going to be leading that with us. A couple of benefits here on Polygon, which, as I just mentioned, are all being manifested in our roadmap for Edge. But again, compatibility with ETH, the bridging that's capable, as Steve mentioned, not having your network operate in an island, sovereignty over the experience, security. So there's a lot of ways that, based on your application specific requirements and your estimations of what security would be needed for operating your network, there's some architectural decisions that can be made. Developer experience, if you're an ETH developer, you're a Polygon/Edge developer, and all the like. So next slide. Just to highlight again, something that may be very well known to this group is the Polygon ecosystem. I think we now have 29,000 dApps across DeFi, NFT, gaming, and then all the tooling that goes with it, including wallets. And one of the things that we are doing at Polygon is to contextualize some of these dApps in an Edge specific implementation. So Kaleido does an amazing job of providing a lot of these tools. So for enterprises to do these rapid deployments, as I mentioned previously. And so we take a lot of our learnings from successful dApps that we've seen in in the main chain, and then we apply them to Edge where they make sense. So there's a lot of opportunity available here. I think if there's any questions around, hey, can I pivot what I've seen in the main chain, but in my sovereign instance in an enterprise grade application, you know, we would love to field those questions and help people on that journey.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. With that, I think we'll turn it over to Dick. Drive the demo.
Sweet. Thanks, Steve. So I believe there's a few slides for me, so I'll just share these and then we'll jump into the product here. So 1 second. So there's obviously myriad use cases that we can look at right inside of the broader blockchain space, but also with digital twins and non-fungible tokens. Today, we're going to focus on a hypothetical carbon credit use case, right, where people are purchasing offsets to be carbon neutral in their industries. But if we look at this slide here, we see that it really runs the gamut of possibilities of what we can do with digital assets and NFTs. So we can see the two different tranches of B2B and B2C. So we can look at things like different insurance companies collaborating to streamline and simplify, first notice of loss for auto accidents. We can look at supply chain, tokenizing, actual real world assets, providing provenance and, great transparency along with different levels of privacy. We can start thinking about tokenizing different, financial instruments and, ESG, which I just said. And we go into the B2C space, right? We have, tons of velocity in the gaming space, right? Or with e-commerce around, provably scarce digital collectibles or digital coupons to remove, fraudulent behavior or to remove, excess printing of these. So tons of different ideas and tons of possibilities. And what you'll notice on Kaleido is that we remove all of the friction to speak to the blockchain in two really important layers. One, what Kyle and Steve started talking about, really just the simplification of creating these sovereign networks. But then number two, the really exciting part for application developers, we provide you with all sorts of easy buttons and accelerators and really simple paradigms that you're already familiar with, like just basic REST APIs. So carbon credit use case, not rocket science here. What we're going to show is the ability to, create these ERC 721 NFTs, right, that are representative of carbon offsets. And then what we can create in terms of the application tier is a marketplace, right, where other entities that want to be carbon neutral have the ability to purchase these assets. They can have obviously attached public metadata, attached private metadata right here. And those assets can also mature, right, over the course of their lifetime. So that's really the idea right here. Last thing that we'll look at, and this will, sort of the entire demo will encapsulate this, but you'll see how easy it is to, run transactions at scale on Kaleido, right? How you can, remove the need to, have currency or have fuel to pay for your transactions. You'll see how easy we make it to, bring your own source code into the system and manifest RESTful APIs. And then, all sorts of stuff around, the fact that this is your own private sovereign blockchain, and you have the ability to control any metadata that's associated with these tokens. So now I'll switch and I'll go into, let me stop sharing, sorry. Okay, so we'll go into Kaleido now. So first news, and the best news, is everything I'm going to do for you in this demo, you can do it as well. Kaleido is free to create an account and start up. It's a matter of minutes to literally, create your first business network and create an underlying, Ethereum chain, a Polygon Edge sovereign chain inside of it. So spend the 30 seconds to create a free account, and then you can join us on this ride here in Kaleido. So let me hop into the platform right here. First thing we'll do is we'll just start from scratch, show you how to create a consortium or a business network, right? So we'll call this Polygon Demo Business Network, right? And this would be for the carbon credits, right? So this is obviously a very lengthy business consortium name, but just provides some context for what we're doing. So Kaleido itself, the platform, we are multi-cloud, multi-region. So we understand that business networks are very diverse. You're going to have multi-party systems. You're going to have individuals that may have existing stacks and cloud estates, on these different providers here. So we provide you with the ability to have a hybrid network, right, to cross clouds, cross regions, and we even support offering we have called Kaleido Private Stack, which would let you bring your own cloud into the system, right? Run on GCP, run on IBM Cloud, for example. So that's the top level object or resource that you create when you're going to ultimately stand up a blockchain in Kaleido. It's called a consortium or a business network. Inside of this object right here, inside of this network, you have a concept called memberships. So my organization, Org ABC, I would be the producer, for example, of these carbon offsets. I get the first membership inside of this business network, inside of this consortium right here, right? But what you can do, a wonderful technique for sort of, initial stages of networks before you truly want to decentralize your sovereign network, is you can create memberships for the entities that are ultimately going to participate, right? The creators, the purchasers, the auditors, the regulators. So we can create, an org DEF right here, right? To be representative of a purchaser. We could create org GHI, right? To be representative of an auditor. And then when we go to create resources, we can bind those resources very logically to these different memberships. And so you create a facsimile, right, of what you ultimately want the network to be. And then when you're ready to decentralize it, we make it as simple as, API-enabled email-based invitation, or you can just come here into the platform, click a few buttons, and you can send off, a role-based access control-enabled network invitation. So this is a wonderful piece of RBAC that you have available on the network view in Kaleido. And then, of course, there's more granular things you can do in terms of the application tier or the blockchain tier with, for example, JSON RPC methods. Okay, so that's the top level resource. Then we go down a level inside of Kaleido and we have a concept called environments. So these are your sovereign chains beneath your consortium, beneath your business network. And let's just go ahead and create just a basic sovereign Polygon Edge chain right here. So multiple doors of protocols that you can go through with Kaleido, right? And so you can experiment across different protocols, across different flavors of Ethereum. So we'll go in the Ethereum door here and we'll just create a name for our environment. And you can follow your classic DevOps pipe, right? And have an environment for development, an environment for UAT, an environment for production as well. And you choose the orchestration. If you want this to be fully managed by Kaleido with built-in high availability disaster recovery, or if you want something more sophisticated where one or more entities potentially run their nodes off Kaleido, right? On their own on-premise mainframe or cloud of choice. We'll go with the easy door today for simplicity. And so now we're in the Ethereum ecosystem and we see all these fantastic choices right here. We're on the Polygon webinar today. So of course we're going to choose Polygon Edge, right, as the provider. And then we'll use IBFT as the consensus engine. A few other customizations you have when you create the network. You can bring your own custom chain ID. You can, inflate the block period or decrement the block period down to 5 seconds, for example, or up to 20 seconds. So you have a lot of control over, just broad high-level configurations. Then you have really, really low-level granular configurations that are available as well. And now bringing this environment to life is really as easy as just creating some nodes and associating them with some memberships, right? So I'll create node number 1. I'll choose to bind it to one of those memberships that's in our carbon credit ecosystem. I'll choose the cloud and the region where I want to deploy it. Now we get into, allowing you to integrate with your existing cloud estate and your existing services. I'm not going to spend too much time on this right here, but needless to say, if you have key management systems or storage utilities or VPCs, Kaleido and Polygon, we allow you to integrate all of those services directly into your runtimes and into the Kaleido platform. Last thing you do, just choose the footprint size of the node, choose if you want it to be a validator, and click finish. And these sizes right here, they really correlate to the ingress, meaning how much traffic and how many client connections can I have and how much data can I get in through the system. They're not binary choices, they're not fixed in time. So you can start with small nodes and then, based on the evolution of your application, you can upgrade them to medium. Or what you can do is, over the life cycle of your application, you can start running your own analytics and you can start getting smarter, right? And so maybe, as an example, at the close of business, when markets are closing, for example, right, you're going to get a huge batch load of transactions coming into the system. So you start, sort of preemptively mitigating any throughput or traffic problems you'd have, right? For example, write a cron job where at 3:50 p.m. every day, right, 10 minutes before all these batches come in, you dynamically upsize your nodes right there so that they can cope with all that traffic. So that's how complicated it is to create your own Polygon Edge sovereign blockchain on Kaleido. These guys will take, roughly 30 to 45 seconds to fully initialize, join the network, and reach their P2P messaging loops right here. But rather than watch these transition from orange to green, what we can do is just go ahead and hopscotch into some environments that I already created. So I have one here called Polygon CC, and we'll use this guy to deploy an ERC 721 smart contract. And then we'll go ahead and mint a couple NFTs and look at some of the really cool REST APIs that are available in the system. So I'm going to show one architecture diagram first, and then we'll actually show the system in action. So I mentioned sort of pieces of middleware and easy buttons that we have in Kaleido. This feature, especially, this is what we call our REST API gateway, and it has a component called ETH Connect inside of it. And ETH Connect is a brain for Ethereum. It abstracts the need to use an SDK, to use Web3 JavaScript or Ethers or Nethereum. It does all the heavy lifting, right? All of those, idiosyncratic, esoteric things that, a lot of developers have gotten quite good at and are comfortable with, but that maybe, enterprise developers and newcomers into the space don't have, the 6 months, 9 months, multiple years to like truly become an SME with. So the takeaway here with this system is that you just bring business logic into the system, into the network. You bring us an ERC 721 smart contract, or you bring us your own bespoke, .sol file. And if that code compiles, what you get is you get a RESTful interface, a REST API method for every function inside of that smart contract. So over here, right, where you're writing your server-side code, where your app developers really live, you've now ripped the SDK out of that, right? Now it's just web dev, right? You're sending in, async, JSON payloads into the system, and Kaleido, this engine, this brain right here, will sign, sequence, and guarantee the delivery of those into your blockchain network. And then, of course, you can get events coming out the other side. And in this system as well, you have tons of techniques for flexible key management, right? Using HD wallets, for example, or bringing in cloud HSM systems as well. So this will be sort of the beating heart of, what allows us to really simply talk to our smart contract and invoke it and query it, et cetera. Okay, so let's go up a level right here, and we're going to go to our network view, and we see this tab called apps right here. So this is our library of smart contracts, right? And one wonderful thing, right? Kaleido does many wonderful things, but one really, really convenient and wonderful thing that we provide is we provide no-code contract templates, right? Specifically deriving them from, the battle-hardened Open Zeppelin library. So you can get ERC20 and ERC 721 flavors of these contracts with different, configurations, mintable, burnable, for example, without writing a single line of code, right? Just go to this digital assets section inside of Kaleido, click this dashboard and say, hey, I'd like a new token right here. You say, hey, who's the account that's going to actually instantiate this smart contract? And then you say create token. You can use this token factory. And now we have all sorts of templates that will build out this smart contract and expose those REST APIs for you. And so what I've done here is I've compiled an ERC 721 token smart contract. And what we'll do is we will promote this smart contract into one of the environments inside of our business network, right? So we can see all the magic that happened for us. We can see the source of where this came from. And now we can push this code into one of our, Polygon Edge sovereign blockchain environments. So we'll push this to an environment named Polygon CC right here. And what we'll notice is Kaleido is going to spit us out all of these open API specifications. So we can use this interface, this dynamic Swagger interface that exists in Kaleido, to very, very easily just instantiate this smart contract. If we want to look a little closer of how we would do this programmatically, it's as complicated as calling this endpoint right here with some security credentials and providing, these whole 2 lines of JSON as the payload to the function, right? And so let's just say try it out. So we'll create a name of, I don't know, carbon credits right here. And we'll just give it a symbol of CC, okay? Couple parameters that are going to be used here. This is the identity that's going to sign the transaction. So that's just an account that's hanging out on the Polygon node that we're targeting. And then we have one final parameter right here where we can remove the need to speak to smart contracts with hexadecimal addresses. We can put human-friendly naming conventions on top of them, right? And so what I'll ultimately be able to do from my Postman or my Node.js server-side code is I'll be able to call a request URL that ends with CC123. So this is wonderful too when you maybe are using the same business logic, for example, but you want to differentiate it across multiple lines of business, for example, right there. Okay, and so we see that transaction come back synchronously. We're waiting for it to fully execute, and if we hop back a level right here, we see that we now have an instance on the blockchain. We have a real transaction, a real address right here, and now we have an instance that we can talk to. So let's talk to it. So we can go ahead and say view instance API. Every node has its own dedicated ETH Connect interface, right? So all of the nodes know about this exact same smart contract. They know about the exact same methods. So we're not sharing source code or doing anything complicated out of band right here. It's just, sort of a shared source of truth, like shared transparency inside of the network for, all of these different applications or all of these different nodes to be able to interact with the system as simply and as dynamically as they need to. Let me do a quick refresh here. So all we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and invoke this smart contract super quickly, and then we'll go ahead and hammer the network with some transactions as well, so that we can, sort of see how the system copes with, high throughput or edge use cases. I guess that's a double entendre, edge. So we'll go ahead. Here's all the fun methods inside of, just a basic ERC 721. We can go ahead and call this guy here mint with token URI. Go ahead and click try it out. I'll mint it to myself, right? We'll mint it to this guy right here, the default account on node number 1. And we can just give it an ID of, you don't have to do anything special. Give it an ID of 1, and then, wherever the metadata lives, right? Whether it lives in your private IPFS cluster that's sitting alongside your Polygon Edge environment, maybe it lives in an off-chain Postgres SQL database, right? You're just going to reference where that source of truth is. And so this could be hash representations as well in the metadata right here. So I don't know, data location 1, for example.com, right? And so we can go ahead and fire this method into the system, and that will, mint the first NFT inside of this token smart contract here. And we can, subsequently call the other methods to say, hey, tell me the current balance, right, of, this address right here, or tell me how many NFTs have been minted, right, in this broader token smart contract here, right? And so we can say, last thing, we'll just call one of these methods, right? We'll say, hey, who's the owner of, right, this token ID right here? And so we can say token ID is number 1, the one we just created, and we should see this address come back, 8AC3 right there, right, 8AC3. So not rocket science, right, but showing you sort of just the real broad ease of use in the system of, pushing, precompiled source code into your environments, into any of your environments for that matter, and invoking it and interacting with it with basic REST APIs. And you can kind of get the idea of how that smart contract management and pipeline feature works, right? Push some source code into your dev or your testing environment, hammer on it, right? Maybe iterate on it, add some new functions, add some new parameters, et cetera. And then as that gets battle hardened, you can start pushing that upstream into a UAT and ultimately into a production environment as well. Okay, so last thing I want to do, and I know we need to leave time for Q&A, so Steve or someone just interrupt me if I'm going too long here. But the last thing we want to do is just look at the support of the system for higher throughput, right? And so what we can do is we can switch to another environment that I've created, right? And I've actually hammered this one pretty decently with a fair amount of transactions. And there's multiple ways, right, that we can get this data into the system. We can talk through those basic REST APIs, or if we want, we can talk through basic JSON RPC calls, right? So if we look at a Polygon Edge node here in Kaleido, we see, multiple classes of endpoints right here. This is the one that we were just targeting from Swagger from the Open API interface. But, just as simply, we can target the JSON RPC endpoint here as well. So I have 2 examples, right? We'll hit this guy right here, and then we'll hit this guy right here. We can see all those transactions come into the system. So we'll go back to the data explorer right here, just go to the dashboard, and then we can go into my terminal. And the first one we're going to run, this first program, is we're just going to call that JSON RPC endpoint, right? We're going to call that raw, fully qualified with app credentials, core Polygon Edge JSON RPC endpoint. And all this is doing is this is calling a contract called simple storage. This is the address of it. We're going to send 200 transactions in. We're going to simulate one client, right? One application connection, and we're going to run one loop right here. It just calls a set method in there and passes it an integer. So we can fire these in right here. And this is just going to assemble 200 transactions. Then it's going to check for those transaction receipts. And it's going to give us, sort of a success or failure statement about how many got through the network or how many failed inside of the network, right? And so, that pre-assembles the 200 transactions, waits a couple seconds, and then starts polling for those transaction receipts right there. So again, not rocket science, right? We're just sending bulk loads of data into the system all at once, right? Like a huge batch job, right? And so we started with 4991 right here. And so we see we have 5191 right there. And we can see these transactions, getting packed into blocks, right? We can tune this. Instead of running 200, I could run 500, or I could run 1,000, or we could change this to start running multiple workers, right? Instead of having one worker, maybe we want to run, 5 HTTP connections, and we want to specify multiple different signing accounts right here. This is public code right here. It's in a repository called Kaleido Go. And so you guys are welcome to take this code, try this out as well. Next one I'm going to show you is really the same approach here, where we're just asynchronously firing a bunch of transactions into the system, but we're going to actually talk through the REST API door. So we're going to use this kind of program right here, where I have a smart contract instance deployed on the blockchain called SS123, have an identity that I'm going to sign with, and we're just going to send in 500 total messages right here using this program. So we can kick this guy off right here. Load test gateway, and this will just asynchronously fire those into that Kafka topic. We get these 202 responses back saying, yep, I got it, I'll take care of it, I'll drip feed those transactions into the network, and then ultimately all of those will get executed in a block as well. So just a very straightforward example of kind of how to hammer the system synchronously, asynchronously, with different payloads and different transaction classes right here. And then we can let Kaleido and we can let ETH Connect and all of those optimization features sort of pack as many transactions into a block as they can and deal with sort of the health and the ultimate life cycle, round trip life cycle of your different transactions. So last thing I want to show too, there's one or two more things. So we looked at the inbound door of how easy it is to get data into the network. Kaleido also gives you a really easy outbound door where you can specify different types of signatures and different types of state changes that you want to listen to. And the really cool thing is, I'll just call this state change right here. The really cool thing is that and I'll just say example endpoint. We're not going to really do this. Once you've taught Kaleido about your source code, right? Once we have those compilations, if there are events defined inside of it, those will get automatically indexed, right? And so we can say, hey, add a subscription, right? Maybe this is for like a transfer event, right? Of one of those carbon credits, right? We can say, this is a different environment here, but if we had, an event available in this smart contract right here, right? And so I have an event called stored number inside of that. But if this was a token smart contract, right, we would see different event signatures for transfer or for approving custody, et cetera. And all you do is say, hey, that's the event that I care about. I want to know about every state change that matches that signature from block 0, or just give me all of the latest state changes right there. And then boom, right, you have dynamic events delivered to your backend into your application tier. And then the last thing that, we sort of have talked about and looked at is, tons of different wallet techniques inside of the platform. So maybe integrating with Cloud HSM services, maybe using a Kaleido managed wallet, maybe just managing, a handful of accounts on your node as well. So there's really a configuration, or there's a technique for, every different requirement, that your use case might have. And hopefully the takeaway here is just the system itself is really, really easy to use. And, we didn't get to click on all the buttons and all the different toggles here, but really would love for you guys to just create your own free Kaleido account, stand up, one or more environments, and then you can, reach out to us via the support feature or, via other communication channels. So I will stop the demo there and turn it back to the broader group.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Many thanks for the walkthrough there. It's always cool to see it. We're going to transition now into open discussion time, do some question and answer. I encourage everyone, if you've got some questions, go ahead and send them in the chat. And Kevin, I think we may have some questions from other online channels as well. I don't know, Kevin, if you want to help tee those up.
Yeah, well, I know we have one from Munez as his hand raised. So Munez, I'll go ahead and unmute you here if you want to ask that.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Firstly, just wanted to say thank you. That was super cool. The deployment and all of that looked very seamless, very fast as well. So kudos to you guys for pulling this off. I'm sure it'll be a very powerful tool for developers. Just like two quick questions. So in terms of the deployment, right? For example, like if for the carbon credits, like use case, for example. So, we have the deployment of the smart contracts and all of that in Kaleido's tech stack, but are there any sort of like tooling within the stack where I'd be able to connect to a front end UI? That's the first question. Second one is like, so, if I want to go explore, start with the free tier, what is the sort of like main difference with the free tier versus, the paid like node hosting options? Yeah, just that. Thank you so much.
This is Jim, one of the co-founders of Kaleido. Maybe I can take the first one, and then I'm sure Nick will have more input on the different tiers. So Polygon being as part of the Ethereum ecosystem, all the awesome tool sets that the Ethereum developers are familiar with are all applicable. So for example, for your smart contract development, Truffle, Hardheads, Remix, you can use all that with Polygon. And when you deploy Polygon on Kaleido, all those tools can be connected too. So your nodes on Kaleido can talk to Remix, Hardheads, Truffle, and other tools that are really essential for Ethereum development.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And thanks for the questions, Munez. So second part of it, we want to provide a no barrier entry to developers and users of all shapes and sizes. So that's why we've really been dedicated to always offering this, free starter tier, so that you can come in, create the free account, create the free environment, and just experiment with the platform, right? There are limitations, right? It's not a all-you-can-eat buffet. So there's some limits on the number of blockchains you can create, the number of nodes you can create, right? And the size of those nodes that you can create. But it's really awesome for lightweight experimentation, because you can just, stand something up, tear it down, stand it up again, tear it down. When you get into the point of getting a little closer to, real application building, right? And you might need multiple environments, or you might need different sizes of nodes, or you might need more sophisticated or bespoke configurations, right? Like, for example, modifying the block interval down to 5 seconds for IBFT. Then we have different tiers, right? That you can just progressively self-serve yourself up the platform, ending with our enterprise tier that has really cool bells and whistles like VPC private link and cloud HSM integrations. And that comes with an SLA from Kaleido too. So it's really just meant to meet you at the specific point of the journey that you're on. But you'll always have that free tier to just, come into the platform and experiment. And we really hope that, I'd love for everyone on this call to be able to create a Kaleido account after it, go do some of the same things that I just showed.
And for a detailed breakdown of what you get in the different plans, you can go to Kaleido.io/pricing, and you see it. We have a very complete Harvey Ball style feature by feature. You can see what's available at the different plan levels.
All right. Up next, we have David Ramirez.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hi. Okay, guys. Nice to meet you. I'm David from Ecuador, and I would like to make you a question about the free tier of Kaleido instance. I would like to know what's the maximum throughput that free tier instance of Kaleido can reach. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, David. So the free tier limits you to, if you saw when I was creating the nodes that we had different t-shirt sizes, and I used all small nodes, right, for that demo or that environment that we just created from scratch. And a small node limits you, the limitations are on the ingress in front of the node. It limits you to 5 concurrent connections, 5 client connections, and 5 requests per second, right? And so you can still get a decent amount of traffic into the network, but if you start hammering it too hard, what you'll see is a server-side code thrown from Kaleido saying 429, you've made too many requests. And what you do there, this then becomes the thesis of why you might want to upgrade to the business plan, for example, right? So instead of writing logic to cope with that failure, like exponential back-off retry, you just have a larger ingress that you know can take all this traffic through. So the answer, that's also in the docs as well. So docs.kaleido.io can be your best friend for a lot of these questions, but the specific answer is 5 connections, 5 RPS.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very welcome. You're on mute, Kev.
Oops, sorry. Thanks, David. Up next, we got Lorian Courage.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Quick question from my side. Hello. First of all, nice meeting you. Sitting in Germany. So Nick, you were issuing a smart contract or like pledging a token, but what I did not get was that you did not pay any gas fees for this transaction. Sorry for maybe this is a super stupid question, but I just didn't see like this one. And then the second thing is, I just want to double confirm with you, but I guess with Kaleido you can kind of like make some transaction public and some transaction private, so that only a certain group can review this transaction. Is this possible? But this transaction would still happen on a public chain. Did I get that right? Yeah, if you can comment on that, that would be great.
I'll let Jim take that one.
Sure. So thanks for the question, Lauren. For the first question, when you run a edge-based chain, you have this protocol configuration that allows you to give it different runtime parameters. So block period is one that you can set, and gas fee is another that you can set. At the moment, there's still a bit of engineering work to fully enable all the tweaks and knobs. So, but look for a future release on Polygon Edge where you can tweak the price gas fee. The second question was on private transactions. So private transactions is sort of a feature explored by many enterprise flavored blockchain protocols. For example, Tesla with Hyperledger Betsu and Quorum. At the moment, so Polygon is still focused on public transactions where all transactions are broadcast to all parties on the network. Maybe Kyle can comment on if there's a roadmap item on private transactions somewhere down the road.
Yep, sure, thanks. Yeah, and this is definitely top of mind for us. As I mentioned earlier, we are migrating some of the innovations that we're doing on layer 1 into Edge, one of them being Nightfall, but this is still a lot of R&D. One thing I will also say around private transactions, I think it depends on who can actually see the blockchain activity. So if you have a VPC, which is gated for certain users, you can't, view the activity happening on the chain, then that's a certain level of privacy, but that's kind of more architectural from a cloud perspective. We do have a noise encryption protocol such that the communication in the networking layer between validators, it cannot be decrypted unless you have certain keys. So, for any applications where we want to have privacy at the top of the mind, we can certainly cover these considerations on a case-by-case basis. Yeah.
And I did just want to emphasize, big picture, stepping back, these edge chains are fundamentally dedicated or self-sovereign, as in the Polygon terminology. You can make them entirely private, the whole chain itself. You can also, Kaleido is also working on the ability to take this dedicated chain and expose a public RPC or create your own tailored public block explorer that has the logo of your project on it. So that's the level of exposure to the world, the outside world, fundamentally is under your control with this Edge chain. And something that I was talking about in my portion was the fact that from an application perspective, once you have that dedicated chain, and you also have connectivity out to the main Polygon chain, public Ethereum, your application can then choose to target where each transaction goes. And we also talked about how within the Edge framework, in the roadmap, there are more bridges, roll-up capabilities. Kyle was talking about even using one of the zero knowledge projects in the Polygon scaling landscape to do privacy within a particular chain. So lots more options and capabilities coming online going forward. And I think the idea is you as a Web3 developer, empowering you to have all of those choices, all of that connectivity at your fingertips, and to be able to choose and tailor everything that you do to the right purpose, the right tool for the right job for your project.
Completely agree with that.
All right, great. Well, thanks for the question, Lorian. Up next, we have Arvind Shidlagata.
Hey guys, hi. Nice meeting you. A quick one. I'm a founder of startup in London, but then I've got a great idea, but I'm not a techie guy. I'm not a coder. So how easy is it for someone like me to start on Polygon, or do I need a techie person who you can help me to build my case, for instance?
Well, hopefully the takeaway of what you saw in the demo is that any full stack developer, has every piece of functionality that they need at their fingertips, right? So speaking to the blockchain, right, in terms of deploying or invoking a smart contract, right, that's just those simple REST APIs. So really, when we start thinking about, the complexity that you need in, the programming space, what do you need, Arvind? You need two things, right? You need a front end, right? So you need some Reactful code, right? That's, your actual application tier. And you may need some integration pieces to your backend systems as well, right? So certain things like maybe little triggers or little Lambda functions right there. But we've tried to remove every sort of complicated or barrier that's existed in the Web3 space so that developers of all shapes and sizes can just, jump into this ecosystem running on Polygon Edge or any of those other flavors and really get a proof of concept or pilot out the door. Feel free to reach out to us offline, just sales@kaleido.io, and we can sort of steer you with some more strategic options as well.
I would love to. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Very welcome.
All right, great. Thanks, Arvind. Looks like Muniz has a follow-up question.
Yeah, just a final one. Are there any further exciting onboarding of Polygon integrations coming next after Edge?
Definitely think of this as the first step. There is more coming. Jim had alluded to within Edge itself, there are more features coming online. If you're following, the evolution of the Polygon projects closely, that Edge has a sister project or an add-on component called SuperNets. So sort of like Superman style, Edge goes into the phone booth and comes out and has the Superman suit on, where there's an even more value-added kind of configuration to your Edge chain. So that's something that there's a straight line of engineering work and development that the Polygon team is driving. Even beyond that, we talked about how the zero knowledge projects could fit into Edge, and how things like roll-ups fit into Edge, making it really easy in the box to connect your Edge chain up to a parent EVM chain, a public parent EVM chain. So there's many things coming just within the evolution of these edge dedicated chains. In addition to that, the Kaleido Polygon partnership, we are looking more broadly at other things. Kaleido is driving an open source project called Firefly, which is not the blockchain stack, it's the off-chain stack to build an application on. So there are some obvious synergies there. I encourage you to check out Hyperledger Firefly if you're curious about that. So yes, absolutely think of this as step one of a whole roadmap of functionality, and really just going back to the original mission of making it that dramatically easier to onboard enterprises, organizations into the Web3 ecosystem in world, and from Polygon's mission, that scaling being the center of what's really necessary to take things to the next level.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
All right, great. Well, that looks to be all the questions. I know we're past time here. So I think probably go ahead and wrap up. Steve, any closing thoughts?
Well, just want to thank everyone for attending, and thanks, Kyle. I know we'll follow up with the materials. Kyle, Kevin, if you want to give a quick shout out to how people can connect with us real easily, that might be a good place to wrap with.
Sure thing. Yeah. So I dropped a link in the chat earlier. If you want to start a free trial and try out what Nick demoed for himself, that is on our website, just kaleido.io. We'll also include in the follow-up email the recording, the slides, a link to a recorded demo, so you can see that as well. And any questions, you can find us. Our Discord is linked to the site. We can drop a link in the chat here for that. We also have a chat on the website if you want to get in touch through that.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.